Books, records, films, these artifacts hold significance beyond their surface. Some might call it shallow, but it's a truth many feel deeply. John Cusack carved out a unique niche, playing characters who wrestled with uncertainty and a lack of clear place in the world. This vulnerability and refusal to feign confidence resonated profoundly with audiences, particularly Generation X teens grappling with the anxieties of dating, self-identity, and an unpredictable future. Cusack became the soundtrack to a generation, the language of mixtapes and car ride confessions, embodying the hope that simply being oneself was enough, as the nervous dreamer matured. Today, we delve into John Cusack's most defining roles and explore how so many of us grew up alongside him in an era that was evolving faster than we could keep pace. How his once relatable persona gradually faded from mainstream Hollywood, and what that means for him now. Born in 1966 in Evanston, Illinois, just outside Chicago, John Cusack grew up immersed in a theatrical environment. All four of his siblings became actors, and their parents co-founded the Piven Theater Workshop, a creative incubator that prioritized intelligence, keen observation, and emotional honesty over conventional Hollywood polish. Raised in this environment, Cusack developed an affinity for writing, reading, and introspection. From the outset, his screen presence was marked by sharpness, detachment, and thoughtfulness. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he wasn't molded into a marketable product or a polished star. He simply was himself. His early roles reflected this ethos, characters comfortable existing on the fringes, whose humor stemmed from discomfort and self-awareness, rather than easy punchlines. This foundation explains why Cusack never quite fit Hollywood's machinery, which rewards movie stars and manufactured images rather than authentic actors. Cusack's desire to be an actor, not a star, would become a subtle but significant challenge in his career. Between 1984 and 1989, Cusack emerged as the voice of a generation, even before that label existed. His rise began modestly, in 1984, with a supporting role in John Hughes' 16 Candles, a film that finally gave voice to teenage alienation on screen. The following year, he starred in Better Off Dead, a bizarre and absurd teen comedy, where his deadpan delivery and impeccable comic timing elevated what could have been a forgettable high school movie into a cult classic. Though it wasn't a box office hit, it left a lasting impression. Also in 1985, Cusack appeared in Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing, a road trip romantic comedy that showcased his charm opposite Daphne Zuniga. One Crazy Summer followed in 1986, reuniting Cusack with director Savage Steve Holland in another quirky offbeat film, featuring characters who didn't quite fit in anywhere. That same year, he had a small but culturally significant role in Stand By Me, aligning him with one of Gen X's seminal coming-of-age narratives. In 1988, Cusack appeared in John Sayles' 8 Men Out, portraying Buck Weaver in the true story of the 1919 Black Sox scandal, where Chicago White Sox players conspired to throw the World Series. This ensemble film explored themes of loyalty and moral conflict, with Cusack's character caught between allegiance to teammates and his own conscience. It was a more restrained and dramatic performance, showcasing his range beyond quirky teen roles. These projects positioned Cusack adjacent to something larger. But it wasn't until 1989's Say Anything that everything truly clicked. Lloyd Dobler, the film's protagonist, remains one of Cusack's most iconic portrayals, embodying a relatable, deeply human character who felt less like a movie figure and more like someone you might know in real life. Watching Say Anything as a teenager, Lloyd Dobler wasn't a glamorous hero. He drove no sports car, wasn't a star athlete, and lacked wealth or status. He lived with his sister, practiced kickboxing, and had no clear career plans beyond a simple declaration: "I don't want to sell anything, buy anything, or process anything as a career." That was the essence of the character, a guy who cared deeply, had no roadmap, and was simply trying. What made Lloyd revolutionary wasn't aspiration, but authenticity. Audiences didn't watch and think, "I want to be that guy." Instead, they saw themselves. Lloyd personified dating anxiety, the dread of saying the wrong thing, the hope that sincerity might suffice. The famous boombox scene wasn't flashy. It was desperate and vulnerable, a grand gesture from someone with no other moves. For many navigating their own uncertainties about relationships and futures, Lloyd Dobler offered permission to be uncertain, to not have all the answers. John Cusack's gift was bringing recognition rather than aspiration to the screen. He portrayed ordinary people in an era dominated by larger-than-life heroes and polished archetypes, making his genuine, awkward, and honest normalcy feel radical. Lloyd Dobler wasn't just a character. He was a mirror reflecting a generation's insecurities and hopes. Cusack could have easily locked into romantic leads and enjoyed a comfortable Hollywood career. Studios and audiences would have accepted it. But he wasn't interested in that path. Instead, he gravitated toward darker, more complex roles that challenged both himself and viewers. In 1990's The Grifters, directed by Stephen Frears, Cusack played a small-time con artist trapped between a manipulative mother and a dangerous girlfriend. A morally ambiguous role far removed from Lloyd Dobler's innocence. This film was emotionally raw and complex. Throughout the early 1990s, Cusack continued exploring multifaceted characters. True Colors, 1991, delved into political ambition and betrayal, while Bullets Over Broadway, 1994, cast him as a neurotic playwright in a Woody Allen ensemble, showcasing his comic precision. However, the turning point came in 1997 with Grosse Pointe Blank, a film Cusack co-wrote and starred in as a hitman attending his 10-year high school reunion. The film was darkly funny, violent, nostalgic, and deeply cynical about the process of growing up and confronting one's own identity. It was also a creative collaboration involving his sister Joan Cusack, Jeremy Piven, and director George Armitage. Grosse Pointe Blank proved Cusack could not only lead a film, but also co-create something smart, strange, and personal. By this time, Cusack's roles reflected men wrestling with their identities, dealing with regret, violence, moral dilemmas, and the tension between aspiration and reality. This intellectual and emotional complexity defined the trajectory of his career. Yet, by the late 1990s, Cusack was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. He appeared in blockbuster action films like Con Air, 1997, alongside Nicolas Cage. But he seemed slightly out of place, performing roles more as jobs than passions. That same year, he worked with Clint Eastwood in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, playing a journalist observer rather than a driving character. 1998's The Thin Red Line, directed by Terrence Malick, was a sprawling war epic. Cusack blended into the ensemble, part of a philosophical meditation on violence and mortality. These prestigious projects, however, were not showcases of his unique talents. In 1999, Cusack starred in Pushing Tin, a film about air traffic controllers exploring masculinity and competition, co-starring Billy Bob Thornton. Unfortunately, the film failed to connect with critics or audiences. During this period, Hollywood was shifting dramatically. The mid-budget adult drama that had sustained actors like Cusack throughout the 90s was fading. Studios chased tentpole franchises and global box office hits, sidelining intelligent, idiosyncratic actors uninterested in playing the commercial game. Cusack was aware of this changing landscape and resisted altering himself to fit. Between 1999 and 2001, he delivered some of his most intriguing work, including Being John Malkovich, 1999, a surreal existential film written by Charlie Kaufman and directed by Spike Jonze. Cusack played a puppeteer who discovers a portal into John Malkovich's mind, an everyman journey into madness that was both funny and disturbing. In 2000, Cusack reached a creative peak with High Fidelity, adapted from Nick Hornby's novel and directed by Stephen Frears. He portrayed Rob Gordon, a record store owner who creates top 5 lists to avoid confronting his emotional immaturity. Rob was neurotic, self-absorbed, and painfully relatable. Cusack broke the fourth wall, speaking directly to viewers and narrating his own dysfunction with humor and melancholy. High Fidelity was both a critical and commercial success, resonating because Cusack had matured alongside his audience. Lloyd Dobler had grown up, become more complex, yet still hadn't figured it all out. The film captured the bittersweet realities of relationships, music, and self-sabotage, earning a lasting place in pop culture. In 2001, Cusack starred in Serendipity, a lighter, more conventional romantic comedy that succeeded at the box office but marked a tonal departure for him. Despite being at the height of his creative powers, the type of mid-budget, intelligent character films that had supported his career were vanishing. Neurotic, intellectual male leads were falling out of fashion as the film industry moved toward blockbusters and franchises. Cusack continued working steadily after this, but his projects became less prominent. In 2003, he appeared in Identity, a psychological thriller about strangers trapped in a motel where people are killed one by one. The film was dark and twisty, with Cusack leaning more into genre work. Also in 2003, Cusack starred in Runaway Jury, a legal thriller adapted from John Grisham's novel, alongside Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman. While it performed decently, it felt like the closing chapter of a certain Hollywood era. Cusack's next significant role was in 1408 in 2007, a Stephen King adaptation where he played a skeptical writer trapped in a haunted hotel room. The film was a solid genre piece and a commercial success, demonstrating that Cusack could still carry a film on his own. In 2009, he appeared in Roland Emmerich's 2012, a disaster blockbuster featuring apocalyptic CGI spectacles. Although Cusack fit the genre technically, he never seemed entirely at ease with such material, as if speaking a language he understood, but did not inherently think in. In 2010, Cusack embraced a different tone with Hot Tub Time Machine, a raunchy comedy about middle-aged men traveling back to the 80s. The film was self-aware, funny, and unpretentious, and Cusack was fully on board. It became a cult hit and demonstrated he was willing to poke fun at his own image. Following this, however, his projects became smaller, quieter, and less visible. He appeared in lower-budget thrillers, including The Frozen Ground, The Raven, and Cell. Some of these films went straight to video on demand. Others had limited theatrical releases. While not necessarily poor films, they lacked cultural impact. By the mid-2000s, Cusack acknowledged in interviews that he was no longer a hot commodity. Financing projects he cared about became more difficult. He expanded his work internationally, appearing in Chinese co-productions and European films. He also ventured into television, starring in the dark, stylish thriller series Utopia, which received critical acclaim but remained underseen. So what truly happened to John Cusack? The truth is he didn't vanish. The industry shifted around him. The kinds of films and characters that had defined his success ceased to be commercially viable. Cusack refused to reinvent himself for visibility, avoided publicity tours, and resisted the social media demands studios placed on stars. His reputation as difficult and uncooperative grew, further distancing him from mainstream Hollywood. At the same time, Cusack became more politically outspoken, writing articles and engaging actively in progressive discourse. His controversial stances alienated him even further from an industry that prefers actors to remain neutral and marketable. Yet, his cultural imprint endures. The image of Lloyd Dobler with a boombox remains iconic, an enduring symbol of sincerity and vulnerability. His characters offered a generation permission to embrace uncertainty, to care deeply, and to keep trying. There is a distinction between actors you admire and actors you grow up with. John Cusack belongs to the latter category. His work helped shape how people understood themselves, their relationships, and their anxieties. That kind of connection doesn't fade. Cusack's characters were kind but never weak. When examining Lloyd Dobler from Say Anything, Martin Blank from Grosse Pointe Blank, and Rob Gordon from High Fidelity, it becomes clear they are variations of the same person, the romantic, the cynic, and the overthinker. Each character delivers rambling monologues where Cusack talks, thinks aloud, and tries to make sense of himself. These performances feel unrehearsed, unfiltered, and real. This seems to be who John Cusack truly is, a blend of all three personas. That authenticity is why he has always been so endearing. When watching his performances, we're not simply watching someone act, we're watching someone be himself. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to hear your thoughts on John Cusack and what his work has meant to you. As always, I sincerely look forward to seeing you in the next one.